Do you know what we're... this is very frustrating because there are an awful lot of horrible things going on behind the scenes by the Supreme Court and by the legislators in Washington. And it's blowing right past us. For example, the decision, when was it? Was it the same? Was it last Friday? Was it Monday? The church-state separation organization called American Atheists were blown away. And I am too, and you are too. The Supreme Court 6-3 decision, the usual breakdown in the 6-3 decision, which now allows staff-led prayer in the public school system. You get this? Madeleine Murray O'Hair, according to these religious nut bastards, was the one who drove God out of the public school system, which is horseshit. Madeleine Murray O'Hair's lawsuit, the Supreme Court heard, eventually simply said that the state, in any configuration, any representation of the state, that person may not lead or influence students, or anybody for that matter, but especially students, in the direction of a certain religion, in this case, this insane Christian evangelical fascism. But the decision by the court, it was called Kennedy versus Bremerton. The case was from Bremerton, Washington. And the decision once again upended decades of Supreme Court precedent. And the decision explicitly abandons a test as to whether or not what was being said or how the students were being influenced was actual religion. It destroys that and allows school officials to now inject their own religion into public school classrooms. It was way back in 1963, for God's sake. The same year of the assassination of John Kennedy. But in that year, the Supreme Court struck down mandatory classroom prayer in a certain school district. I forget which one it was. And it was consolidated with a case brought by Madeleine Murray O'Hair, the founder of American Atheists. And I remember that. Maybe you're old enough to remember. So much of this stuff I do remember when all of a sudden it was decided no more school prayer. Now, I've said before that when I was a kid going to elementary school, we started every classroom day with a moment, not a moment of silence, but a pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States, even after the words "under God" were added in the 50s, and then a prayer. And the teacher led the prayer. And she wasn't praying to a Hindu god, one of millions. She wasn't praying to some form of Buddhism. She wasn't praying to Yahweh. She wasn't praying to Muhammad. She, and I say she because they were mostly women teachers, she was praying to the Jesus Christ God in the Christian evangelical religion. And if there were Jews in our classroom or Muslims or Hindus or whatever, it didn't make any goddamn difference. So the president of American Atheists said, I think over the weekend, or maybe Monday, his name is Nick Fish. That's interesting. But Mr. Fish said, quote, "The Supreme Court just opened the door for coercive prayer to return to our schools. It shows just how far toward theocracy we've slid in recent years. Students are, and always have been, allowed to pray. But giving coaches, teachers, and other authority figures the green light to engage in the sort of coercive prayer at issue here is nothing less than an outright assault on the religious freedom of young people by this out-of-control Supreme Court." And I've made that point before also when these religious nutfucks would start wailing and screeching about how Madeleine Murray O'Hair drove prayer out of schools, which is bullshit, utter bullshit. But Christian fascists lie. That's all they fucking do, is lie to make their point. They lie and lie and lie with their coercion and their belligerence and their threats. any kid starting in year zero up till the present moment. If that kid wants to go to school and pray, she may. It's up to her. She can pray before an exam. She can pray she gets a certain boy or girl to ask her to a prom. She can pray for anything she wants to. But the school cannot, in the form of any employee, because it's an agent of the state, cannot lead that prayer. Very simple. First Amendment, once again, being ripped to fucking pieces by the Supreme Court. But the case decided Monday, I think, involves a football coach. His name is Joseph Kennedy, who said he, quote, made a commitment with God, end quote, his words, to proselytize, to try to convince kids to believe his bullshit. Now, what this guy did after each game, this coach would encourage, that means order, players from both teams to kneel around him at the 50-yard line as he held up each team's helmet and led students in prayer. I mean, this is like something out of some pagan bullshit someplace, which I would much prefer it were. Now, the litigation counsel for American Atheists, a guy named Jeffrey Blackwell, said, quote, the Supreme Court will inflict serious damage on students with this decision. He went on to say, quote, coaches greatly influence the lives of student athletes, both on and off the field. They determine whether students sit or play, even whether they have a shot at a full tuition college scholarship. Whether intentional or not, Mr. Kennedy's behavior coerced students to pray so they could stay on their coach's good side and get playing time, end quote. Oh, these bastards, these dirty bastards. Now, as far as what the Council for the American Atheists said, I can just add a great big, all caps, no shit. I played football in high school. I played my junior and senior year. I was, excuse me, I had left home at 17. I had to report to my football coach, Coach Carson, every morning before 9 o'clock. Or I don't know what he was going to do, make me do 50 laps, call the police, I have no idea. But because I was living in a rooming house across the street from the school, I had to report in every morning. Okay, no big deal. But his word was law, Coach Carson. It wasn't the principal of the school. It wasn't the dean of boys. It was my football coach. I know the power that a football coach has because I've been there, over a teenage kid. So this guy, this Kennedy, this son of a bitch who said he had dedicated himself to proselytizing, to convincing kids that they had to believe what he was saying. Oh, my God. So anyway, following what this coach bastard was doing, the Bremerton, Washington School District tried to step in to protect students' freedom of or from, you pick the word, religion. And the school board offered some fair and reasonable accommodations to Kennedy, but he said no to all of them. And that turned football games into a media spectacle. And when he didn't get his way, this rat little fucker pretended that he was the victim. He sued, and now he won at this fascist Christian Supreme Court. Oh, my. Now, the litigation counsel for the American Atheists, Blackwell, Mr. Blackwell added this, quote, school staff, including teachers, will now feel they can force their personal religious beliefs, no matter how extreme, on students. In a country with people from so many different religions, and where more than a quarter of Americans espouse no religion, this is a recipe for disaster, end quote. And then Vice President for Legal and Policy of the same American Atheist organization. This person's name is Allison Allison Powell said, quote, "This is another example of the Supreme Court playing favorites. Christian plaintiffs like Mr. Kennedy, with claims that should be dismissed, are instead permitted to bring their cases to the highest court in the land in order to further certain justices' ideologically biased agenda." No shit. And back to Mr. Fish, the counsel for the school. He said, for American Atheists, he said, quote, "With school staff apparently now allowed to proselytize, students will lose their religious freedom whenever they enter school. Parents, especially non-religious and religious minority parents will have little say about the religious beliefs staff impose on students. So much for so-called parents' rights and students' so-called religious freedom." Once again, Mr. Fish added, "The Christian extremists on the Supreme Court are moving us into terrifyingly uncharted territory and increasingly toward an America with less equality and fewer rights," end quote. Yeah. I mean, this is fucking unbelievable. I can't find the right words that would express my rage and anger over this. And the fact that these 6 Christian son of a bitches on the Supreme Court, 6 of them, 3 thanks to this fucking criminal Donald Trump. But these 6 religious nutfucks are now imposing on the entire country their religious beliefs. And you know who's leading this is that goddamn bastard Sammy the Fish Alito. You know, I've referred to Amy Coney Barrett as Amy Christian Barrett. Listen, Amy is an amateur compared to Sammy the Fish, where it concerns this radical, insane, mouth-breathing, arm-waving, foot-stomping, sweaty, filthy, threatening, belligerent so-called Christianity. Sammy the Fish is just fucking out there. So here we are again. What do we do now? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.